What's happening?
Get ready
Gents,
for us. We're going live.
Bruh.
fellas.
It's a chance of the 3.5.
Cheers,
Wanna know the deal. What's going on?
Look at that, man.
What's up?
It's a chance of the 3.5 to be a fly on the wall. At the barbershop or gym, in the bathroom stall. When he's on his way from hanging out or work. At the end of the day, do you ever just want to get into a huddle to listen, rebuttal, or just plain understand what's happening in the cave of a man? Yeah.
Speak on it.
3.5. Yeah.
All right.
Slavery, the treatment of human beings as property, deprived of personal rights, has occurred in many forms throughout the world. The Atlantic slave trade, occurring from the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents, forcibly brought more than 10 million Africans to the Americas. There had been centuries of contact between Europe and Africa via the Mediterranean. But the Atlantic slave trade began in the late 1400s with Portuguese colonies in West Africa and Spanish settlement of the Americas shortly after. American natives were enslaved, but many died from new diseases, while others effectively resisted. And so, to meet the massive demand for labor, the Europeans looked to Africa. In some societies, slaves could be part of a master's family, own land, and even rise to positions of power. But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result. Neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent. After being marched to slave forts on the coast, shaved to prevent lice, and branded, they were loaded onto ships bound for the Americas. About 20% of them would never see land again. While the lack of sanitation caused many to die of disease, and others were thrown overboard for being sick or as discipline, the captains ensured their profits by cutting off slaves' ears as proof of purchase. Many inland Africans had never seen whites before and thought them to be cannibals, constantly taking people away and returning for more. Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere cargo. Women and children were kept above deck and abused by the crew, while the men were made to perform dances in order to keep them exercised and curb rebellion. But what is not often discussed is the effect that the Atlantic slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most of the slaves taken were men, the long-term demographic effect was even greater. The African kingdoms whose economies it had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And the increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare. But the Europeans who preached a universal religion, and who had long ago outlawed enslaving fellow Christians, needed justification for a practice so obviously at odds with their ideals of equality. Slavery in Europe and the Americas acquired a racial basis, making it impossible for slaves and their future descendants to attain equal status in society. In all of these ways, the Atlantic slave trade was an injustice on a massive scale.
Choosing a high-quality alcohol means mixers are no longer needed, so you can put down the fruit punch-flavored drinks and start drinking like a grown-up. These are the alcohols that are so good you can actually drink them straight. Crown Royal XR Whiskey. Crown Royal was literally made for royalty, first crafted as a gift for King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the first ever reigning monarchs to visit Canada. It's a satisfying luxury experience and the stuff tastes just like you'd hope. A deeper, more resonant version of the easy drinking Crown Royal you know and love. Bekarovka. The color is golden, the consistency slightly syrupy. The flavor starts harsh but ends up smooth, leaving drinkers with what can only be described as a Christmassy aftertaste. It's easy to shoot, but sipping it works just as well. Connoisseurs swear by drinking it straight. Reyka Vodka. An incredibly smooth, small batch spirit from Iceland that barely leaves a burn in the back of your throat. Drinking it is almost like taking a clean, crisp sip of water. The vodka is also filtered through lava rocks and harnesses the country's naturally occurring geothermal energy to produce each bottle. Four Roses Single Barrel Bourbon. The taste is incredibly smooth and mellow with a lingering but pleasant finish. Ron Zacapa 23 Rum. Originating in Guatemala, it's a departure from Cuban and Puerto Rican rums, but that's part of why it stands out. This particular rum is blended using rums aged 6 to 23 years. The result is a slightly sweet, buttery taste that can stand completely on its own. It's rich, flavorful, smooth, and I'd never even consider adding it to a cocktail. My recommendation? Pour an after-dinner glass neat and pair with a nice piece of dark chocolate. Kings County Distillery Chocolate Whiskey. Their chocolate whiskey, made in Brooklyn, combines their signature moonshine with ground cacao bean husks. The result is a bittersweet taste with a warm finish that is surprisingly smooth. While it's tempting to throw together a chocolate-based cocktail, you'd be doing the whiskey a disservice if that's your first introduction to the brand. Key Platinum Extra Anhelo Clear Tequila. As Shantae Cosme of Complex Magazine writes, a fine tequila does not require you to lap up a rim's worth of Morton salt for it to be palatable, nor does it need to be saturated with a sea of sugar-laden sour mix. It's part of why when you're drinking it, there's no overbearing alcohol smell or harsh burn. It's a tequila that's meant to be enjoyed over a long period of time.
It's at a winery called the Brotherhood Winery.
All right.
And it's cool. Ironically enough, my wife and I used to go there like when we were single.
Yeah.
Like, we'd go out for like
Dating.
dating. Oh, dating. What's that like? Yeah, but like going up there, like it's beautiful. Like it's one of the United States oldest wineries.
Okay.
So
some history, some fine history, because America has none.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go it's an open concept, so they have a beautiful backyard stage, and it's like overlooking the whole winery, and it's an outdoor elevated stage. It's beautiful. So
Nice, man.
we can actually. They were like, oh yeah, we have a bed and breakfast down the hill. If you want to stay there, you can drink all night after your show. They're like,
"Are you going to do that?"
Obviously.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay the night. I'm gonna actually see. I'm gonna try to see if I can drag my wife for like a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How far is it from your house?
I think
it's about 2 hours. It's about 2 hours. It's upstate. I mean, it's far.
Yeah.
So, but it's those kind of gigs.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy it to the fullest, man.
Right. And for me, look, you guys are musicians and performers, like you can get one or two of those gigs and they don't pay bad. So it's one of those things where it's like, honestly, at this point in my life, at this point right now where I am, it's not about the money.
Yeah.
No,
I have a job
because you love it. Yeah.
I'm
That's like
doing
me
it
now.
I love it.
Yeah.
In my thing that I really want to do, and I know we've been saying it for a while, but when things get back to normal, we gotta have a band ourselves, because nothing makes me happier than being on stage with my friends. Like,
exactly.
These guys are consummate professionals. They're great. But like, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, I can tell you
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you could sing. You could be the lead singer. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Trust me, I know exactly what you mean. That was me, like my last contract. Like I was like MD. So I was like, I was able to direct everything. And it was just beautiful. Man.
Was that your last contract?
Yeah, it was my last contract.
Yeah, you enjoyed that one, I know. I could tell.
Yeah.
So much fun compared to all the others that I did, like on that ship.
Yeah.
Because in the party bands work 5
Constantly.
hours, like 5 hours every day.
Yeah.
It went from hard work to vacation.
Yeah, man.
So
but you know what? You deserved it, though. I mean, sometimes you have to graduate to those things. I mean,
yes.
You know, everybody's always complaining about it in past contracts, and I'm like, man, you know, you'll get that gig where it's
if you work for it. If you work for it and try to get it, because now what happened? It was so funny where my first contract, I spoke to them. I told them, okay, guys, how do you get this gig? How do you get this gig? I was like, oh, just speak to our agent and blah blah blah. So I talked to them about joining the band. But what happened was, in order for me to join the ship, I would have had to pay my flight from St. Lucia to Southampton. That's how the contract was set up. And then I was like, okay, guys, I was looking at it compared to the salary compared to the plane ticket, it made no sense.
Yeah, quite
so
pricey.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. All right, cool. So I did another contract with the party band. And the funniest thing is, after that contract, I quit. I quit completely. I was like, I'm not going back to shifts. After working 5 hours every day, just working, I was exhausted.
Exactly.
So I quit. And then literally in the middle of my time back home, a guy calls me. He's like, hey man, it's an emergency. A guy got fired. Can you just come in and fill in with this band real quick? Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, sure, I could probably do it. They give me the details of the contract, and I looked at the ship. I'm like, wait, pause, Azura. Wait, I'm like, really? Pause? And like, dude, I just left that ship. I just left. So it's like I left the ship.
Just there.
I was just there. He's like, oh, you know the band? I'm like, of course I know the band. So literally, I left the ship in September as party band, and I rejoined in October with literally different agent, new band, new everything, and I'm coming back on the ship. And the most hilarious thing about that contract was the party band on that ship. I was the one who shot the showreel for them. So,
oh, really? Okay.
Right. So the showreel for the party band I was joining, I shot the video for them, and I sent the video to the agent. I did everything, all the editing, all of that stuff. And they're joining the ship. This is the line. They're joining the ship, and I'm right there with them joining the ship. We joined on the same day.
Well, at least you get friends.
I know, right? So they're looking at the list, and they're like, but wait, why is your name on the list? Because they didn't realize that I was joining the ship. Because I told them, well, I'm staying in St. Lucia, I'm not going back, whatever. And then when I joined the show, I was just like, hey, what's good?
Like, let's have some fun.
I know, right? And they were staying in my old cabin. It was so hilarious. Like, they're in my old cabin, I'm on the same ship. And I was like, but wait, weren't you with that band? And I was like, yeah, I was.
Yeah, that was me.
Exactly. But it was awesome, man. That contract was just awesome.
What was it? Azamara Cruise Lines?
No, Azura.
Oh,
so
Azura.
Piano UK. Yeah, man, that was a great ship, man.
Today we're here to discuss one of the biggest events in cruising lately, the sale of Azamara from Royal Caribbean Group to Sycamore Partners for $201 million. The new owners of Azamara, Sycamore Partners, have never owned a cruise line before.
I think some people are taking this investment as a sign, and it's created some new excitement. So I was bullish before, which is why I wanted to get back in, and I'm even more bullish now that I'm back in on the future for Azamara and the future for the cruise industry. Until hopefully what we've done here is demonstrative of that. And I'm excited for what the future will hold. There's still a few bumps ahead of us, but in the long run, this is a great industry to be a part of, and it's going to have bright future ahead of us.
So there have been numerous cancellations recently. One I predicted in one of my last videos. I predicted that the Cunard ship, the Queen Elizabeth, their cruises would probably end up being delayed. A small number of crew members have tested positive for COVID 2 weeks before they're supposed to set sail. And I went to myself, I said, a small number. Why are you not telling us the number? As soon as I heard that, I said, that's bigger than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I think that's a little bigger, and perhaps more people are still needing testing, etc., etc. The inaugural sailing for that ship now has been pushed almost another month further down the road into August instead of July.
So I'm always in Dubai, but a friend of mine told me I had to check out this pool. Deep dive Dubai, I'm about to go down.
I think what happens is that your hair grows quicker when you don't touch it. I've learned that.
Oh yeah?
If you don't touch it, you don't play in it, you don't do stuff, it just grows. Because my hair like took off during COVID. Like it grew, yes, because I was using all the oils, the castor oil, the Dr. Miracle. I was trying to get it grow. And then
Dr. Miracle?
Dr. Miracle, that's what it's called.
Is that the orange?
Yeah,
can?
it's from Dr. Sebi, one of Dr. Sebi's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that if anybody wants to grow their hair, yeah, Dr.
I wish I would have known that. Too late. Too late, Jardé.
But
You're about 10 years too late.
Hey man.
But yeah, but it works. It works, man. My hair grew like wildfire. Yeah, man. At the beginning of COVID, it was on the top of my back. Now it's on my chest. Yeah. 1 year.
It's always been us. I can worry and trust you, baby. I invest too much. I've been healing, don't rush it, baby.
The Gents of 3.5.
Well, all right.